Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I present you this vintage motorcycle saddlebag. We're gonna create it with two different mounting system and it's all included in a pattern, which you can find on our website. Let's get to work. Print out the pattern, use A4 format in 100% scale so the measurements are correct. Then start cutting it out. It's easy to join them and you've got miniature on page 3 so you can compare it with the pattern which you print out and put it all together. Like you can see here, I don't cut all the edges. I'll cut only parts to join because it's easier if you got a little bit of a paper left over there to join with the other part. It shouldn't take long for you to put it all together. When you finish assembly, just grab a ruler or measure tape and check if all the measurements are right, and you can also compare it with the miniature which is included. When you finish cutting out the pattern and putting it all together, use any technique to trace the pattern onto the leather. I use scratch awl and some weights to trace the pattern onto the leather. I use slightly different pattern in here than you've got because I use prototype. We finish all the tracing, let's start cutting out. I mainly use rotary cutter as usual, but sometimes utility knife as well. Most of the elements on this pattern are made from 3.5mm thick leather. Only thinner leather I use is on buckle mounts, which are mounted onto the front of the bag. But if you don't have skiver, you can also make a gusset from slightly thinner leather, about 3.5mm thick. So even if you don't have thinner leather, you can also use some equipment to thin it down. I use like a hand skiver. Most of the tools I use in this video I will link down in the description below the video. This little skiver is quite useful tool for many different purposes. Sometimes I use it for strap ends and thinning down the leather when I'm doing the buckle mount. So the leather is thinned down to 2.5mm. So now we need to cut the shape out. For the tricky corners I use punching tools. You can even use the rounded ones and then cut the rest with the utility knife. To complete it, just punch out the holes which are marked in the pattern and also punch out the stitching lines. The easiest way to mark the stitching lines onto the leather is mark the 3 points where the stitching line ends and place the part itself onto the leather and then mark each hole so the holes will be in the same place. And remember to add one hole at each end so the thread overlaps the leather. On the pattern you've got marked up stitching lines, but I still use a compass tool to do it. Then I use punching prongs to calculate how many holes I need to do. And then if I got number of holes, I can easily calculate how many I need on the other parts, which is gusset and the back part. When you finish all the necessary measurements, it's time to punch them all out. On the pattern itself, you can see that stitching lines are a bit more narrow than on the shield itself, because shield it needs to have a little bit of a shape. It needs to be bulky. I hope you enjoyed this video and the pattern. Please hit the like button if you do. And you can also subscribe to our channel. We got quite a few different patterns on the website. Some of them are free to use as well. In my case, for this bag, I did 134 holes on each part. And that's just only the front to gusset and gusset to the back. It depends what prongs you're using. Some parts of this video are a bit overexposed. Unfortunately, I shoot in manual mode and I changed the lighting setting and I forgot to change the settings on the camera. Sorry for that. Let's double check if we got all the parts ready. On the beginning of this video I said that we can have on this bag two different mounting systems. One is reinforcement bit with slots for the belt, which you can see on the screen, and you can have alternative, which is kind of like old school saddlebag system. It replaces the red part in the pattern and it works like this. You attach it to the back of a bag and then to the second bag as well, and then you secure it together with a couple rivet screws, and then you can use one belt to attach it to the motorbike. So we need to thin it down a couple things. First of all, reinforcements bit, the red one in the pattern. I skive all four edges so they don't disturb when you're reaching out anything from a bag, because reinforcement bit is mounted on the inside. And the gusset itself, like I said, you can do it this way or you can use slightly thinner leather. If you use the version with the reinforcement bit, cut the slots out for the belts. If you use the alternative, you can cut two of them in the middle for the one strap mounting. So very important bit is, remember, you can move those slots around, because obviously different bikes got different racks, and if you do it for your bike or your customer bike, use the measurements of the rack as a guide for those slots. You can move them up and down and side to side as well. When you place them when you want them, make sure they're in the same spot on the bag itself as well. It's good habit to actually mark first the smaller part, because if you made a mistake, you're not losing so much leather. It's time to attach the reinforcements bit. I use some masking tape on the edges to actually protect the leather from being scratched, where we use sandpaper, and even excessive glue sometimes comes out from parts being glued together, and also it serves you as a nice guide as well. My belt skiver sometimes is a little bit unprecise and unpredictable, so sometimes I use French skiver as well to finish the edges, so they're very thin. I like the effect when the leather is smooth on the inside, because sometimes when you got like a little edge inside the bag, you might scratch your belongings. Or you might cut your nail as well, which is quite unpleasant. I use a Siva glue in here. It's same company which does Tokonol. And I use a heat gun on a very low setting to speed up the drying process. Then wood slicker or bone creaser to attach it to the leather. And now it's time to punch all the rest of the holes. You can punch all the holes before you place the bag together because you got pattern ready. When I was making this bag, I didn't have the pattern ready yet, because pattern is based on this bag. Don't forget to punch out all the holes for the strap. And let's start stitching it all together. So measure the 5 lengths of a thread, then wax it if it's not waxed already. And this way I'm threading my thread, so I'll go twice through the thread with the needle and then pull it back so you don't have any knots. First thing I stitch in is the reinforcement bit. We had quite a few questions about saddle stitch technique, so this is how I use it. If you have any questions about Leathercraft, you can drop the comment below. I might create a video for you. When you go to the end, do the same as you did on the other side. So go back twice, and then you can cut the thread off and burn it with the lighter, which will create little bubble, so the thread won't unthread itself. Before I attach anything to the front, I like to do my edges. All the edges which are with the stitching line, we're doing only one side, but all the rest of the edges we're doing from both sides. And we're ready to attach the buckles to the bag. I use cobbler's buckles, and because it's a vehicle and it's gonna ride in the rain, we use stainless steel buckles, and we attach it with very strong Chicago rivet. And use same stitching technique to attach it to the bag. When you're done with the buckle mount, it's time to start stitching the gusset in. It's very long stitch, so I'll go with 2 threads. First I'll go halfway through, then I'll finish and tie a knot, then continue with new thread to the end. On this example, I will also show you how to manage when you run out of thread. Let's say I run out of thread in here. So I tie a little knot in here and then start it with a new thread from a second hole and continue all the way forward like you would with old thread. And when everything is stitched up, you can cut off the knot and burn the ends of the thread with a lighter. We finished attaching front bits, so now it's time for the back with the flap. At this point, bug is already standing by itself. If you can see it, I have it on a desk. So it's quite easy to stitch it all together. This month was quite a long month. I had quite a few projects to complete. But this project was quite special because I love old motorcycles as well and love creating stuff for them. I hope you enjoyed this video and you will enjoy creating the bag from this pattern as well. All the sentiments away. Now it's time to work on the edges. I recommend to stuff the bag inside so it doesn't wobble too much. And be careful with the sandpaper because you can damage it. After sanding it down, sometimes it creates a little sharp edge on the inside, so I did the gusset with #1 skiver. And as usual on all my projects, I use Tokonol on the edges because I think it gives best effect. But I actually received something new which I'm gonna test out. So if you wanna see it, follow me on YouTube channel and maybe I will show you this in the next video. After the edges, I attach the strap to the flap and let's make the holes in the right place. This is the technique I use. I close the back completely and then with scratch all mark where the holes should be. And then I use marker, which I include in a pattern, to measure the distances between the holes. And this buckle is quite thick and truddy, so I used oval shape punching tool for those. And have a look on the final effect. Let me know in the comments below what you think about it. Thanks for watching and see you next time.